Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are live. Stephen Schnee is joining me. We are talking the Motels, the Capitol years. We're talking Martha Davis solo record. We're talking a lot more other things, so let's get ready. This is great.
Grant is changing the world one track at a time on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and hopefully we are transmitting. I see we have 6 people watching. That's a good start. I want to welcome Stephen Schnee here tonight again. Tonight we're going to attempt yet another live show. If anybody watched the aviary show from yesterday, YouTube, actually CD Baby pulled it. Of course, we played all those tracks, and if anybody's been following the listening parties in the warehouse, you know we've played aviary before with no problem. So I am assuming that there might have been a copyright change, because we've talked about this before. Steve, was it you and I that have talked about this? That CD Baby's very sensitive, shall we say?
CD. A lot of people get mad, and they say like, F CD Baby. They shouldn't be blocking this video, and blah blah blah. But the thing is that CD Baby doesn't exist anymore as a physical distributor, but they do manage digital, and they're doing great. They do a great job at managing digital. I just was talking to somebody via private messenger today, and he said he knows that he's going to get paid by CD Baby. Mm-hmm. So CD Baby for Schnee TV, if anybody knows about that show where I play independent music videos, the only time that I get dinged and the show gets blocked is when a video by a CD Baby artist is featured, and I have to pull it. It's not a warning or anything like that.
It's not a strike. It's not a strike.
Just blocks the video. So an entire hour show could be blocked by one video, 4 videos, whatever. Last night, I posted unlisted the new episode of Schnee TV. It was up there for 8-9 hours, and this morning when I switched it to Premiere, all of a sudden, bingo, 4 videos in that show were tagged as blocked. So I had to redo the whole show today.
So something has went on last night, because mine got blocked. I think they blocked it this morning. So something, I don't know if the bots are out patrolling, but I've never had any problem with aviary before. And someone had mentioned before that they couldn't bring up the Twitter link, but I went to it just now and I pulled it up. So it's still, Twitter's still working.
The aviary show is so fun.
The aviary show's so fun, and I want to do at least a show like that once a month to premiere these bands. And Steve and I have talked about it, and we've got some ideas coming up. But right now you have to go over to Twitter. I got the link on the Grant Rock Warehouse site in the community chat. It should, if you're a subscriber, please subscribe, because that way you can get all the information. If something like that goes on, at least you can know what's going on the channel, or Facebook. That's the other place, or Twitter. Pretty much. I don't use Twitter as much. I'm gonna start though, because now I've got my little blue thing and all that. I'm for real. But now, at the time, I had to get the blue thing because they wouldn't let me stream the show on Twitter. So now I'm official, so I can do all kinds of fun stuff over on Twitter. X. So anyway, we're on a tangent already, but I thought we needed to. CD Baby needs to get with the program instead of acting like babies. Well, Byron put a post on the comment. He said, like aviary, free publicity for aviary. We did an hour show, an advertisement, a promotion for this great record, and we get blocked.
Again, I have a show that is always affected by this. I have CD Junkie episodes that sometimes get affected by this. It's really absolutely crazy the amount that CD Baby does this, but they are doing their job. They are collecting the money for the people, and they are making sure that there's no piracy going on out there. People are not using the music without paying for it. So it's frustrating being on the creative end that we are, Grant, but it's a godsend being on the creative end of the artist that creates the music.
Well, I've got something to share, which everyone will find very odd. Now, if you're a content creator and you play a track or a song, some tracks or songs are you're able to share the revenue with the artist. All the aviary stuff, all the Brad Wood stuff that I've seen, you post it, you can share revenue sharing with the artist. So it's got revenue sharing with the artist, but it's blocked. And all my other aviary, of course I couldn't do it because it was all in the show. So I can't just pick out one track and revenue share. But it still has that designation. I can revenue share, but they blocked it. So they're also screwing the artist as well. Because now I can't revenue share with them.
You know, another way to look at that is I have a Mixcloud show. That's where I do all my Ski Lodge, Return of the Living 80s, etc. And they don't allow, like I can say, like I'm going to do a Motels episode. And since Mixcloud is a radio show, then they only allow a certain amount for you to use a certain amount of songs by that artist. Mm-hmm. So if I put 3 songs by the Motels, they could say, no, you can only use like 1 per show. And that's because, again, they don't want somebody to just put an album up there.
So it could be the fact that if I picked one aviary song, it might have flew.
Yes.
But we did a whole show.
A whole album, then it got dinged because basically what the bots are seeing, they aren't seeing you and I talking about it. They are seeing you playing all tracks from that album.
Well, yeah. Well, if we're going to do this type of format, we need to rethink this a bit.
Yeah. But hey, guess what? At least we get to come together again and talk about the Motels.
Exactly. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in and just bearing with us, because I had to bring this up. And when we're live, that's the best way to bring it up. And I figure we're all into this together. And of course, I think it was a great show. It was very successful. As of now, it's still up on X. So please check it out before it disappears. But I would like to do something more like that. Maybe we could look at, you could look at a couple albums, play a couple of tracks, and maybe split it up with yet another band, play a couple of tracks, talk about that record. I don't know. We'll develop it. Sorry, I missed this. I love the Motel. Well, we're still on. We just started. Hi, Rich. Nice to see you. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for here. I'm not going to blab anymore. We're going to get on to our show for tonight. And tonight's show is the Motels, the Capital Years. And this is a show, I can't remember who suggested it, but this has been one of those shows. It's been on my list. And here we are, and Stephen Schnee is back tonight. And who else would I have to talk about the Motels with other than Mr. Schnee?
I know that I've suggested the Motels, but I think I suggested the whole catalog. But we only have an hour, so we're going to talk about...
all right, Ken has a question. What if you only play half or just the best track? Would it still get dinged? What's your thoughts on that, Steve?
I think that if you, let's say I would think that if you played any more than 3 tracks, it might get dinged.
Well, we can try it.
But we're not going to play Motels, right?
No, not today. We're just going to talk about it. I don't want to play Russian roulette. This is one show that I would not want to get taken down because, well, everybody knows that Steve and I love aviary with a passion. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I think we turned on so many people last night. But the Motels... one of those bands that back in the 80s, yeah, I appreciated them. I thought a lot of their stuff was a bit too slick, but in my little hometown, we didn't have much access to the Motels. You being out on the West Coast, it's much different. But I was really only hip to the hits.
Yeah, right, right.
Only the Lonely, which is phenomenal, and I can't get enough of that track. But anyway, we're going to get into the track. We're going to talk about all the Capitol albums. We'll discuss Apocalypso, which was the fabled third album that, well, got unreleased. Never came out, but it did get a release on 2011 on Omnivore. We're going to talk about that because it's a phenomenal release. One of the best Motels records on the planet. And we will be talking a little bit about Martha Davis, her solo album from 88? 87?
87.
87. So we'll be talking about that. Anyway, let's get started. Welcome everybody in the chat. Do you want to do like any kind of brief intro on the band? I mean, you've been out on the West Coast, so they were around playing in the clubs back when you were like a kid.
Yeah. I mean, they were getting played on K-Rock. Not the first album so much. First album came out in 79, produced by John Carter. Of course, Martha Davis on, I'm sorry. As I get older, I thought Martha Davis was a babe back then. But as I get older, she gets more beautiful. Just looking back on those days, it's just everything about her, the songwriting, the voice, she had this way of bringing you in, not just with the melody, but with the emotion of her performance, the song, everything about it. She had a very distinct, certain way of chord changes. You'd hear, I'm not a musician, so I don't know these, terms or whatever, but you'd hear these chord changes that they instantly sounded, oh, that's a Martha Davis song or a co-write. She also had one of the most unique voices back then. You could hear Terry Nunn on the radio in the background and maybe go, is that Terry Nunn? Or you could hear Dale Bozzio and go, is that Dale Bozzio?
Well, I think Dale Bozzio you could figure out pretty easy.
But Martha, I think, was far more distinct.
Yeah.
But the group was Marty Gerard, Jeff Gerard, Brian Glasscock, Michael Goodrow, and Martha at this point. This sounded like a group that was formed around Martha's songwriting in terms of, okay, we're a new wave group or whatever, but we have to figure out the best way to present Martha's songs. And as opposed to just a band going out and going, hey, let's be new wave. It's like, well, how do we translate these songs into this style? And it just, Total Control was not a hit over here. It was I think top 10 in Australia. I think it was top 20 in France. This album you could see everywhere. You saw in LA, you saw, billboards with this album cover. You saw big displays in record stores with this album cover. Didn't do great numbers in LA or in America, but people saw and heard something special overseas. And because she sounded exotic in a way, sort of otherworldly. And very, very unique. Nothing really hard-edged on the record, but still lots of great songs on this album. Really pointing the direction. I've got the little mini LP.
Oh, is that the Culture Factory?
Yeah, Culture Factory.
Yeah,
with a little mini inner sleeve and everything.
Nice. I've just got the original Capitol CD.
Okay.
And I must say, the production on here, what Carter brought to the production, I love the way this record sounds. It's very Okay, I think that the Motels will get a little bit more experimental as they go. That might be because when we get to Apocalypso, I think that album. Well, we'll get to it, but I find this is a very raw record, but it's very clean.
Yeah.
You might say it's polished, but it's not polished in the way like the later records are. Because later records, it's like, okay, Capitol's going, all right, Motels, we need a hit. And we've talked about that. You and I have talked about these bands. They get to that point. They give them a couple of records to really try to get something going. And you and I may look at these records like this record and Careful and Apocalypso and may think these are absolutely brilliant. But these records didn't sell. But we're going to talk about it. This is very new wave. You could call it I guess you could call it post-punk. Post-punk and new wave's very similar. Same thing. But it still has a rock edge. I think the production is superb. I think the songwriting's superb. I think this first album is absolutely brilliant. There's really nothing else out there at the time. But you can tell when I listen to this, Steve, this is a band that played a lot, got their chops together in the clubs, and by the time they got in the studio, they were ready.
Yeah.
And Martha, her songwriting, I know a lot of the band helped in songwriting as well. Not all Martha, but absolutely. She is so accomplished, even by this time, the way I hear it.
She'd been writing for 10 years already. Yeah. I mean, the Motels, or at least a band fronted by Martha, had formed in the earlier 70s.
Right.
And they had given it a shot. They almost signed to Warner Brothers. I think by that time they changed their name to the Motels. And then what happened was, I guess things weren't happening for them, so they broke up. And they had a song on like I think a Warner Brothers compilation or something. And then she met these other guys and they put together this band. And that's what we hear. So I think a lot of these songs are like already road tested or live tested. You know, she's already played them a bunch of times. The band is really familiar with these songs. And like I said, the band, I think on this record, I mean, everything is solid, super in place. They're still trying to find a way to work around her songs. And I think that with the next record, I think the band was far more comfortable and their personality was coming out on the record. So do we want to move to that?
Yeah, we can move to the second album, but I do want to say that based on what you just said, the thing that I like about this first record, there's a lot of room to breathe.
Yes.
There's a lot of space. It's not slick production. It's really just focusing on the songs. And the band is tight. Everything is wonderfully recorded. I know I keep saying that, but I think this is an absolutely stunning record. So, yes, we can move on. Highly recommend it. Go out and let us know what you think of this record. We want to hear from you. The second album, The Motels, Careful, from 1980. John Carter is back. Go ahead, Steve.
This is an album that I think that the band showed their personality just as much as she did on the first album. You know, the first album was very much Martha Davis and the Motels.
Yeah.
This album was very much the band stretching out and bringing more life to her songs. Jeff Gerard, guitar player, had left, and she was playing Tim McGovern, who used to be in a band called The Pop, joined the band. And he was, I think, on the first independent pop album, and then he might have been on the Go album on Arista. But he joined the band, and he brought a new element to the sound. And one of my absolute favorite Motel songs and one of my favorite songs of the era is Danger by on this album. Just that used to get played to death on KROQ here in LA or Southern California. But this whole album, it was like their personality, everything, whatever you liked about the first album, it was magnified on this. And even the cover showing cartoon Booby was, everything about this record, it just took the band to a new level, in my opinion.
I agree.
A lot of personality.
We should mention that Tim McGovern was Martha's boyfriend at the time, and basically she brought him into play, and then Jeff Gerard, well, nice seeing you, but I'm bringing my boyfriend in. And we had a lot of these kind of problems within the Motels.
Yeah.
Never date people within your band.
Yeah.
But Tim McGovern, I think, is absolutely wonderful. And what he brought to the band, hey, I think Jeff Gerard's fine. Yeah. But we've just entered a different part of their career. Yeah. I think this album does sound like a bit of a step up from the debut. It's still very open. The songwriting's just as good. There is no sophomore slump here.
I think they're being more adventurous on this record too. They're adding new elements to the sound without taking anything away from Martha.
Yeah, they're just doing what they do. When I listen to this, it doesn't sound like a band who's just out there trying to get a hit.
Yeah.
They feel like true artists, and they're playing to their art. A lot of I believe the record company got more involved, which we will see on the next record. I don't know. It's just became about getting that next hit. I get it. Mm-hmm. A lot of these bands get that pressure, And the thing is, I don't think the Motels, we haven't went to the later records, but when I listen to them, there's not a weak album amongst the bunch. There's just different degrees of the Motels, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But Jason remembers KROQ, but he didn't listen to it much, not in his wheelhouse. But did this get much played? Do you remember back in the day, did KROQ play this, or did this get
Danger
any attention?
Was played all the time. Boy, when that came out, okay, it's not a sad song at all. It's just this great, it's just this perfect song for 1980. It's just glorious. But it almost brings a tear to my eye because it's so many great memories. Just to show you the little inner sleeve here. Mm-hmm. Guess who the focus of the group was there, guys? It was Martha.
Well, of course.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, the great thing about Martha is beautiful lady, but her talent was amazing. She just wasn't this good-looking gal thrown in front of a bunch of cool musicians, and they write all the songs and she sings them. No, she was in charge. And Martha is every part of the Motels. And what was really interesting is Brian Glasscock is like one of the most recognizable musicians in my life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, that's one guy where if you see a picture of the Motels and maybe Martha's not in it, maybe she's off to the side or whatever, but you see Brian Glasscock in it, you go, oh, that's the Motels. He's one of those few musicians that are instantly, of course, now I can't think of it. Who was the drummer of Pat Benatar?
Byron Grumbacher.
Yeah,
Myron
that guy.
Grumbacher.
Identifiable. Whenever you saw a band picture, you go, oh, that's Pat Benatar's band or drummer.
Well, let me say this. Brian was in the band. We've talked about this band on either the Contrarians or in this show. The band Toe Fat.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
He was in Toe Fat.
Oh, wow.
He was the drummer in Toe Fat after Kerslake left. So,
wow.
He was the drummer. I mean, he was a lot older than the rest of the band.
Yeah.
Yeah. Myron, it's hard. Say that really fast.
Yeah, Myron
Grumbacher.
Yeah.
And he played with Mr. Benatar in the band, like in Cleveland or something.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I know what it was. Wasn't Oh shoot, what's Mr. Pat Benatar?
Neil Giraldo.
Neil Giraldo and Myron played in, I think, a version of Rick Derringer's band. That's where they came from, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're on a tangent, but that's okay. We're just talking music. Oh, I know what I was going to say. In that Behind the Music episode that aired on VH1 years ago, they interviewed the band, and the band all knew that Martha was it. They supported, even though they knew it was originally the Motels was a group effort. The record company pretty much just pushed him in this direction. Eventually to the point where they got Martha out of it.
Yeah.
They thought that it should just be her, but the band was always very tight. And they always thought it was a real band, but they always knew that Martha was key.
Yeah.
And they were all fine with that. They didn't have a problem with it. But, the music business is what it is.
Yeah,
So anyway,
exactly.
good record. I would recommend it. There's not anything weak in this catalog, I don't think. I say we now go to Apocalypso because this fits chronologically in.
Exactly. That was my intention.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the third album. They got Val Garay in there.
Great. Does great work.
Yeah, great producer. I mean, he's more slick. John Carter is he gave the band more space. Val Garay kind of filled in some of the empty spaces, but a very good producer. But this was a band who had grown immensely with Tim McGovern coming in, and then they decided, well, let's get even more adventurous. Let's get even more creative. Let's do things we haven't done on the two albums. They went in, and the label said, no, I don't know. I don't know about this. I think the label actually said, we'll release this, but, in a sense, number one, it was bad because I think it was the ultimate thing that drove Tim McGovern out of the band.
Well, he arranged the whole record. He had a lot to do with this. Was basically his baby.
Yeah.
To be quite honest.
Yeah.
And I don't think he took it very well when it, well, let's leave it at that. But yeah, was it the promotions department, or there was a promotions department that said, nah, we don't want to put it out?
And the thing about it is, some of the songs they would eventually re-record, but what happened is it was such a unique sounding album, but it was different enough to where it scared the label. And then the label went, essentially just said, you need to go back and put together an album. We don't hear a hit, even though Only the Lonely was on this.
And this version of the track, I think, spectacular as well. Mm-hmm. It's different, but it's not. It doesn't have the gloss and the sheen that
or the
All
Schnee.
For One or the Schnee.
Yeah.
But
yeah, see, the CD here contains the original album that they had recorded, plus a bunch of other things, like demos of songs and stuff. I think it is a super important part of the band's. I never thought I'd get to hear it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Omnivore was able to put that out. I think it's still in print too. I think you can still get it.
Yeah. So Apocalypso was the actual third album, and I believe that's the actual cover. Or you have it up there. That's the actual cover. Mm-hmm. The only thing is that it didn't come out. It's supposed to come out in 81. Didn't come out until 2011, 30 years after it was recorded. It's a very, very odd, strange record. There are songs on there that weren't re-recorded for All For One. So you're going to need to get it. It's not basically just an early version of All For One.
Yeah, I think Tragic Surf was the track that made it on the next record. I think it might have been slightly remixed a bit, but it's pretty much intact from these sessions. But everything else I mean, So LA was re-recorded. You know, Only the Lonely was re-recorded. Apocalypso was re-recorded.
Yeah, everything I think with Tim McGovern was re-recorded.
Yeah.
But that wasn't released, and that drove a wedge there. Tim McGovern was out of the band, but Tim McGovern did form the band Burning Sensations.
Mm.
And they had
There you
a
go.
big K-Rock hit called Belly of the Whale. And if you go watch the Belly of the Whale video, there's somewhere in that video, there's a scene where there's a lady standing there and the camera zooms in on her and she's all white face makeup, and then lines appear on the screen that basically look like that. So keep it on that. But Belly of the Whale is an incredible song. This EP came out, and then there was also an album that came out after that, but only the EP came out on CD. But Belly of the Whale is one of my favorite 80s songs as well. I think it's right up there with the Motels and everything. Just very, very, very different, very different.
Well, I think that this continues where this left off. This does have more polish. They become more polished, a little bit more slicker. But Steve, I think this is probably way more experimental.
Absolutely.
This is not a commercial record.
No, it is. In my opinion, they got more adventurous, more experimental, less commercial, and that's why the label is going, oi, no, Martha, we don't want you to do that.
Yeah, we want a hit. We need a hit.
Yeah.
And if you do know the Motels or you're just getting into it, I highly recommend this. I mean, you could start with this as far as I'm concerned. I think this might be my favorite Motels record because it's pure. Well, this is them doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
This is them not being controlled. Val, the producer, was involved. He supported it. Mm-hmm. They produced this. They were a new wave. They were an artsy band. Mm-hmm. They weren't a hit-making machine. And I think this is pure Motels.
And Martha's very unique.
Yeah. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. So anyway, look for that. I do believe it's still in print. You might be able to stream it. I'm not a streamer. I don't know. So go check it out on Omnivore. Anyway, Steve.
I was on Spotify today looking for looking to just to see if they had these the post Capitol albums. They don't have any of those, and I don't remember seeing a Apocalypse up there. But I wasn't looking for it either.
Wow.
They probably do still have it, or I mean, they probably do have it. But Apocalypso, they went back in, spent 3.5 months in the studio, re-recording with new guitarist. Was it Guy something or other?
Guy Perry?
Yeah, Guy Perry.
Yeah. He passed away.
Did he pass away?
Probably about a year ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Then they put out, of course, All for One.
Here we go.
It's basically a reworked Apocalypso. And when I say reworked, I mean they re-recorded
it.
Yeah. But this is the album with Only the Lonely, which still to this friggin' day just friggin' floors me.
Yeah.
It was a top 40 hit. Usually top 40 hits don't make me wiggle inside.
Does this make you wiggle?
It makes me wiggle inside.
God, that's
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either, but it sounds fun. No, it's just incredible. Take the L out of Lover and It's Over.
Oh, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
I think Take the L is every bit as brilliant as Only the Lonely. But look at this. Is this a better album than Apocalypso? I think it's probably the best album if you don't have Apocalypso. You're considering Apocalypso. But what they did with this record, I have to admit, Mission of Mercy opens it. Then it goes Take the L, Only the Lonely. Then Art Fails, Change My Mind, and then So LA, Tragic Surf, Apocalypso. It's just a phenomenal record. It's
pop heavy on the front, and then they do allow themselves to get a little artsy. I kind of agree with Eric. I wouldn't start with Apocalypso either. I would probably start with Careful or All for One.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to dive in, the great thing about the Motels, I mean, I'm sitting here showing CDs, but you can probably get these all out in the wild on vinyl.
Probably pretty cheap.
Yeah. But I always recommend CD. I always recommend, buy new CDs, support labels and record stores, but whatever you want to do.
The only way the reason I like Apocalypso better, because it just seems to be them not being controlled.
Right.
This has Capitol's fingerprints all over it.
Absolutely.
This has the Motels fingerprints all over it.
Well, here's another big difference. Apocalypso was the Motels. Beginning with All for One, they utilized a lot of studio musicians, even though they weren't actually listed. The members of the Motels were listed. Plus they list other things, but they brought in more studio musicians than I think that they let people realize. That they let on. They had the band go out and play it live.
Yeah.
But studio wise, they did bring in quite a few studio musicians.
Yeah. But it's fine. I think they got a great result. If they could have just captured this, and while these bands change, these bands morph. But I think this might have been the peak to me. Could be, possibly. Depends how you look at it.
I think that this is it's just a great pop record, and it's a great Martha Davis record.
But is it a great Motels record?
I think it is a great Motels record, but is it the Motels?
We don't know the details on that.
Yeah, we don't know how deep it goes. But to me, it doesn't matter, because the friggin' songs shine. Only the Lonely, Take the L. We've mentioned them. And like I said, they do have that adventurous edge on the second half of the album.
Eric Robertson says All for One to me is an average album with a few strong tracks, like Careful and Little Robbers have more strong tracks. I don't know. I don't see it that way at all. Anyway, go on, Steve. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, we all listen to things, differently. Back when this album came out, I remember thinking, boy, this is really a commercial album. How is it that they've come up with, they had these two very kind of new wavy albums, and then this was aimed for the MTV generation. And the MTV generation, I'm not saying, when MTV became popular, it was just, there was a shift in music. The videos came out were slick, but the music was also slicker. This, I believe, is an MTV generation album. But that's not Martha or the Motels' fault. That's just the way that they fell into that. And I think this is a super, I love this album.
I love this album too. I could play it and never get tired of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Phenomenal.
Ultimately what wins is Martha. Martha's songs, Martha's voice. There's so much emotion in it. And that's what has always drawn me into the Motels. Whether she's telling a story that she wrote, I mean, if you go back and you see them live, watch an old clip or concert from 80, 81 or whatever, you'll see that she's very commanding, on the more serious songs, but she's having fun. It's just, there's so much emotion coming from within her in the music and in the performances and everything else. So,
yeah, I like it. Anyway, highly recommend it. Nothing weak on it as far as I'm concerned. So we guess we're going to move on. Next album, we're going to look at Little Robbers from 1983.
Let me see what this inner sleeve looks like.
Let's see. So this starts out with Where Do We Go From Here? Nothing Sacred to Suddenly Last Summer. And come on. Give me when you hear Suddenly Last Summer, what screams summer? That song totally is a summer song. Kind of like The Boys of Summer, screams summer. This also does. Isle of You, Trust Me, Monday Shutdown, Remember the Nights. Another summer song. This is like a whole summer album when I listen to it. It's just screams summer. Little Robbers, Into the Heartland, Tables Turned, and Footsteps. And this
They added a member, by the way.
Yes.
And also a Val Garay production, and also using a lot of studio musicians.
Yeah, like Steve Goldstein. We've got Waddy Wachtel is on here. Chris Page. I don't know who's playing what, but at least they're getting some notoriety in the credits on this record.
Scott Thurston, I think he toured with them or whatever, but then he became an official member on this album.
And he isn't Scott part of REM now too?
He was. No. Scott Thurston?
Didn't he play with REM?
No, I think you're probably thinking of
Touring
Scott
musician. No. What did Scott Thurston? Who did he play with?
He was on Gilligan's Island.
No. He was in another band.
Scott Thurston Howell the Third.
No. He was in another band.
Was he? Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I'm going to have to look it up, aren't I? Keep going.
No, but this is another slick album, but another great. And again, look, from what I understand, Martha was having
Tom Petty. He was a backing musician with Tom Petty.
Oh, okay. Martha, everyone write another hit. Of course, Suddenly Last Summer. Oh my God. Boy, was that a great follow-up. But the pressures, I think, also led to drinking. And so they started, I think the band started losing a little bit of focus, a little bit of balance, whatever. This is still a very, very, very strong album. But I think that this was a record label album. Go back and make us another All for One. Don't try to make us an Apocalypso. Don't try to do Careful 2. Go back and make All 5-1.
Yeah, because I don't see any growth on this record. Because, well, think about it. You might as well just say it. Suddenly Last Summer's basically Only the Lonely Part 2.
Yeah.
I think it's phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. But they're not pushing any boundaries here, like Apocalypso. The first 3 albums, they grew on top of each album, I mean, you could look at All for One as growth as well, but here there's no growth. This is just like these 2 records. I could just throw them in the air, interchange all the tracks, and there you go. I'm not complaining about it.
Right.
It's kind of like the Cars and Candio. It's like the same album to me. Great songs. We talked about it. Martha's sounds wonderful. Is this a group effort?
Yeah. From a studio musician's effort. But yeah.
I don't know.
But still,
there you go.
One of the best bands out there,
Session musician for the Stooges. So Scott Thurston, yes, he had quite a pedigree. But anyway, he's now in the band on this record. I think he wasn't on All for One, right? Correct?
Wait, didn't he play Chachi on Happy Days?
No. He might have. Okay, here we go. Eric Robertson. Remember the Nights, Tables Turned, title track, Where Do We Go? This is almost a perfect album to him. See, Eric hears this as a perfect record. I
can't deny it. When you're saying there's no growth on it, as you say, that's not a bad thing. They're just, it's like, they're not stepping up, but stepping things up, but they're maintaining the quality.
Right. Oh, it's definitely yes. There's just no growth. It depends on what you want.
Yeah.
And I like it all, but I think it's a good record. Yeah, you could start out with this record if you can find it.
Yeah.
It used to be back in the day, this was plenty in the dollar bins. I don't know where it is now. This originally came out on Capitol. They released this like in '83 when it came out, when CDs first came out.
Mm-hmm.
This was released on CD.
Yeah.
And try to find one. It cost you an arm and a leg to get an original CD copy, and they were all pressed in West Germany at the time. But just go to Discogs and look. There's hardly been any that have ever sold. And, you know, if I can get one, I can get one. But I have not seen the original for, God, since the 80s. CD of it.
Right.
But it just seems weird, though. Wouldn't you think that, I don't know, maybe the Motels didn't have much of a lifespan, you know? Because how long did it take, Steve, for them to even reissue this like on CD?
Now, All for One's been reissued a few times, and there's been more compilations.
Mm-hmm.
And each album came out, and then of course the Culture Factory mini LP sleeves. I think that was 2012. I think.
But I think One Way brought these back out in '97. So this had originally came out in '83 at the beginning, the infancy. Virtually dropped, disappeared until One Way brought these back out. I'm just saying, for such a great record, and it sold decently, I'm just surprised. But maybe during that time they just lost steam and people didn't care about the Motels.
See, I think that the Motels fell into the same problem that a lot of bands did at that time. People love the hits. They want to, you know, when they see that the Motels are playing at the local wherever, they go, oh my God, I got to go see the Motels, right? But when they talk about the Motels, they think of 4 songs, max.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that song, that song, that song, that song. They don't remember just how great the albums were. And I think that's kind of sucks for Martha, you know, because she's far more talented to just be remembered for 4 hits.
Right.
So I'm glad that she is still out there making money, you know, I mean, making albums.
Did someone in the band pissed off the record industry? I don't know. People think Motels are one-hit wonders and they're completely lost with the deeper cuts.
Yeah, definitely.
There you go, Brian. All right. So anyway, good record. Highly recommend it. Let's go on to the next record. Now things are really starting to change. Ooh, this is almost kind of surreal. It's like looking into it and looking into it.
Why don't you go ahead and show yours and I'll show mine.
Oh, let's really... This might break. We might get thrown off YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. How many times can you show that lovely Martha Davis getting shocked there?
Yeah, I did the album cover. I like this. Well, I like all the records. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, somewhere along the way they lost Val Garay. They split with him.
Oh, Richie Zito.
Yeah, Richie Zito.
I can't stand Richie Zito. What he did to Cheap Trick, he should be put in prison for.
There's something. Okay, Shock again. I have to reiterate that Martha's a great songwriter and a great vocalist, very emotive.
Yes.
But when somebody comes in, and you know, sure, when you hear Only the Lonely, you go, oh, okay, that sounds, you know, production-wise, it sounds early '80s, but it's still timeless in a way. When you hear Shock, you just go, ow, that sounds like 1985. Ow, that sounds like 1985. This is a very 1985 sounding album. And in 1985, it sounded futuristic. It sounded modern. It sounded like, wow, we have stepped away. We have come to this point where the Motels went from this new, you know, this guitar-led band, and then they added more elements. And even though this is the band, again, is this all studio?
I think that this record, for what I understand from behind the music, it's been a long time, but I think the band played on it, but I think it's very studio musician oriented, heavy.
I'm not going to say it's a bad album because I like a lot of the songs.
I don't have a problem with this record. It's very polished.
Yes.
But that's it.
but it's very 1985.
If you're looking for something that sounds dated,
Yeah.
this sounds dated.
Yes.
Great. Martha sounds great. The songs are great. Shock is a phenomenal song. Even though it sounds 85, Shock is such a brilliant track that I don't care.
Right.
So we've talked about this too, Steve, where something could be production 1985, 80s, really heavy duty commercial, but the song is so good that it withstands all the horrible production.
Yeah.
If this had the production of All For One, I think it probably would have helped it. Because All For One doesn't sound dated to me.
No. I mean, you
Or
can
Little
tell.
Robbers sound, you can tell it's 80s, but
It's still timeless.
this is very dated.
You're talking about the songs and doesn't matter what you do with them. If you go back and you listen to Daniel Johnston, all those cassette all those cassette albums he made on a little boombox in a garage, this kooky, crazy, brilliantly wonderful musical genius. It's just him and like a air organ or him and a piano that's almost off key and his whiny vocals and stuff. But you hear these songs and you go, wow, that is a great song. And you could take that song and you could do great production on it. It's still going to be a great song. And that's kind of what these are. This isn't the Daniel Johnston part of it. This is when you take the song and do a little bit too much. This is when what you really need is just a cheeseburger, and then somebody hands you a triple cheeseburger with tons of bacon, tons of onions, tons of this, tons of that, or whatever. It's still delicious, but damn, it's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what I look at, the way I look.
Yeah, and this record, they've really lost all control. They had no control on this record. This is a capital record,
Yeah, I mean, Grant's Rock Warehouse. Where else are you gonna find somebody comparing a 1985 album by the Motels to Daniel Johnston and a triple cheeseburger?
Cheap Trick, please explain. Oh, Jeff, don't get me started. I'll get too worked up. Just listen. Just look at Standing on the Edge and look at The Doctor. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, The Doctor was just a crap album to begin with.
I know. I'm not going to talk about it because I get upset.
Okay. But I think your name was right there when you said 80s sound could be a virtue. My favorite era is 80s music. But
yeah, I could have used that, Jason. Idiot me. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
There's a difference between an album that is created in the 80s and an album like Press to Play by McCartney. That's not new wave synthesizers. Let's make a new wave synthesizer 80s album. We want to sound with it with the kids, but it just didn't work. And that's kind of the way that I look at this. A great collection of songs. The production was a little bit overbearing and almost pushed the songs down in the mix. Almost.
No, they're not yacht rock, Brian.
Although, if you think about it, you could be on a yacht smooching with a fine lady, or lady smooching with a fine man, and then listen to Only the Lonely. Might fit.
It might fit, but I don't think it's traditional yacht rock. I think it's
no. Unless here, let me look at the credits. I'll see if Kenny Loggins sang backing vocals,
or see if Christopher Cross did backing vocals.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I would play it in a yacht rock show. That's how I base it. What about that Neil Young album from '83? What was the album?
Is that Trans?
Well, I like Trans. Is that '83?
I'm not sure, but
I thought that's '82.
Was that '82?
I don't know. I'll look it up.
It starts off with a little thing called Love or whatever, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a good album. And all of a sudden he goes into Transformer Man.
Well, it came out in '83, January of '83.
Okay,
I love Trans. I don't have a problem with Trans because I like the fact that Neil just freaking just does whatever he wants to do.
Oh, that's the best thing about Neil Young is, and the thing is that that like if you don't like it today, you're going to love it tomorrow.
Okay, Eric, there you go. Lap of Luxury and Busted. Who was it? Who was working with them on, who took over Standing on the Edge from Jack Douglas? I can't remember. On the Edge. I wasn't thinking Cheap Trick today.
Transformer Man.
Now I'm going to have to look at it. Okay. Jack Douglas was a producer. Okay. Jack was in litigation. Of course, I knew that. Okay. Here's who ruined Standing on the Edge. It was Tony Platt. Tony Platt had his hand in The Doctor. I'm getting him and Richie Zito confused, though. I'm not a big fan of either one. But Jack Douglas could not finish Standing on the Edge. Now, if you've ever heard Cheap Trick on one of those comps from Real Gone, there is an original version of Little Sister on there that has the original mix from Jack Douglas. So far superior. I'm going to go into it, aren't I? So far superior that I think there's a great album on Standing on the Edge if you didn't have freaking Tony Platt in there making a mess of it. Adding digital drums, adding synths. I mean, I don't know if even Bunny's drums are even on there anymore. They're all fake drums. Don't get me started. And then they hired him for The Doctor. I don't understand.
Tony Platt, isn't that the guy that played Wally and Leave It to Beaver?
Yes. So anyway, there's the Cheap Trick thing. All right, so Richie Zito did Lap of Luxury and Busted, and he didn't do any favors to Cheap Trick either. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I love Cheap Trick. So okay, on with our show.
Shock.
Yes.
Did not do very well, and by January, I think February 1987, Motels broke up, and
oh yes, I'm ready. Sorry,
Martha went and she recorded her first solo album, Policy. This is going to be the last album we're really going to talk about because we're just covering the Capitol years. But the first single, what was the first single called again?
Oh,
it was written by Diane Warren, which is always evil. Usually when you see Diane Warren.
It's evil.
Yeah.
Just Like You?
No. Song before that.
Oh.
Tell It to the Moon or something.
Tell It to the Moon.
Yeah, great song. But Diane Warren was usually that, you know what? This album doesn't have a lot of songs. Get on the bat phone and call Diane Warren. Now they call that one knucklehead from Four Non Blondes. Or Brandy Carlisle too. They call those knuckleheads to come in and, work on songs. But I mean, they also did it with, what was the gal that wrote all those great songs in the 80s? Divinals, Pleasure and Pain. She was also in the group Device. She was in the group Spider.
Oh boy.
She was kind of like that. They'd call her in. I'm saying knuckleheads. I don't really mean that they're knuckleheads because they're very talented artists, but you just know that they're there to bring in that commerciality. They're kind of like, they're not writing from the heart. They're writing from the chart.
Right.
Or for the chart. Not from the heart. They're writing for the chart.
But there are a lot. Oh, this is all studio musicians because there's no band anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And, she gave the band that story. It's in the VH1 show where she talks about she had each member come to a bar, she got him a drink and basically fired him. Said that we have no more money.
Yeah,
we're out of money. But this was supposed to be a Motels record. But,
I think that she had the songs and they were planning, but the Motels didn't start recording or anything.
No, but originally it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just think that the only person that knew what to do with Martha was gorgeous.
But very slick. This is a record company album. Richie Zito's back at the helm too.
Exactly. I think that like
Mr. Commercial.
Martha, I mean, maybe, like I said, I don't like to talk about personal things, but I think she had, alcohol problems and stuff.
I don't know.
But she's the only one that really knows how to bring Martha out, that talent. And she's immensely talented. And sometimes that talent gets drowned, not drowned, um, gets drowned within sort of this type of production. Because you're here. Oh, Holly Knight. There
Holly
you go.
Knight. Thanks, your name. Don't tell me The Time was the first single, if I recall.
Off of Policy.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing about the Motels. Like, well, first, let me know your thoughts on this album.
It continues off where this left off.
I think it's even more slick than that.
Oh, it's more slick. But that's what I'm saying. Where could you go after this?
Right.
This.
Right.
It's fine. I don't think it's a... The Motels records are far better than this. You have to appreciate, yes, she's going, but this failed miserably as well. I mean, she only put out the one record. I mean, on Capitol.
I think Capitol kicked the rebelliousness out of Martha Davis. They kicked the artist out of Martha Davis. In terms of, I've used the word adventurous and experimental many times, as we talk about these albums. I think that was lacking on this album. I think it was, I think one more album and she would have changed her name to Melissa Manchester. But that's just me.
She did what the record company wanted.
Yeah. And
I'm not holding her in contempt of court because she did that. I get it. I understand. You're in the machine.
Yes. But what I want to mention though is a lot of unreleased stuff from this period that we just talked about.
Sure.
Was compiled on Anthology Land, a 2 CD set.
Okay.
There's like early mixes or alternate mixes, early mixes. Some, I think some of the tracks.
Yeah, I'll make it bigger. Oh, I can't see it. Okay, but there you go.
I think some of the tracks that were on Apocalypso ended up on this, but there's live tracks. There's even a recording of them on Saturday Night Live.
I need that. I don't have that.
Yeah, it's just a great collection. This isn't like a best of. This is a collection of rarities and things like that. So there's songs on here that are only on this. So you definitely need to add this to the collection.
Yeah, I don't think it's cheap anymore.
But there's also other things like see, I did an interview with Martha on the phone once, and then she sent me a couple CDs. This Clean, Modern, and Reasonable is acoustic versions of some of their hits, but they're totally rearranged. So Take the L sounds nothing like Take the L. And then let me see here. This is Beautiful Life, solo album, and then she's written on the cover and explained it to me.
Very nice.
I talked to her on the phone, and it was so awesome because she was absolutely awesome, beyond awesome to me. And I tried to get the company or the distributor that I was associated with to put out her music, distribute it, because she was putting it out on her website, and nobody was getting back to me. So I think it made Martha think that I wasn't working hard to do anything.
Let me see. All right, hang on. I'll make you big again.
Okay.
There you go.
This is an album called This, and she's written on that. And then there is this called So the Story Goes, another Martha Davis solo album. See, and these are all indie produced, low budget, lo-fi, whatever. But God, there's great songs, and she sounds amazing. far more intimate. Here is a Motels album called "The Last Few Beautiful Days." That was actual Motels album. Marty Gerard, by the way, is back in the band. So it is Martha and Marty. And some of this later stuff here, there was a 2 CD compilation called "If Not Now, Then When," that that is a 2 CD anthology from the year 2002 2006. I think a lot of this might be unreleased as well. So that's the post Capitol stuff.
Yeah, I've got one, but it's this was the first thing I ever bought. Yes. And it is
No Vacancy? Yeah.
Yeah, No Vacancy.
Yeah.
And it's got, well, I got this used, but it's got a lot of great tracks. You
can't see them, that's a great introduction.
It's a great comp, and you can usually find this used, and it doesn't cost. I don't think it costs very much, but
no. There's also like a Classic Masters, which has fewer songs than that, and then I think there's probably. Remember how Capitol used to have this like 10 best series, but they would do it 2 bands, like double play 10 best, whatever. Yeah. So you get Spandau Ballet 5 songs, Naked Eyes 5 songs, and they probably put 5 Motel songs with 5 Pat Benatar songs or something. There's also live albums out there, but again, I'm not a live fan. Yeah. And I will buy anything that Martha puts out new. She did put out an album a couple years ago that I think was her like singing jazz standards or whatever, but it's only on vinyl. So I can't play it.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, we went over an hour, a little bit over, but hey, this was a great discussion. I think we should wrap this dog up. Hopefully we have turned you on maybe the Motels to go out and seek it out. Because I can listen to it. I can even listen to this. I really can.
Oh, it's absolutely. There's nothing in a catalog that I can't listen to.
Right. So let us know if you're new to the Motels or you hadn't heard them. We do want to hear from you in the comments. Please leave a comment because I will see it. Well, heck, Steve even checks out. He'll answer the comments. We both will check. Leave a comment what you think. We will respond.
Yes.
Out of that, what's next in the warehouse? Well, Lord Almighty, I've got like 3 more shows I need to edit to get out there. But that's why I'm doing live shows now, because I don't want to have something sit in there that I have to edit.
Yeah. Can I let everybody know that tomorrow, I don't know if you like to announce dates or whatever, but the day after.
This is live. Please do it right now. So.
Okay. September 13th, that's 6 p.m. Pacific. Brand new episode of Schnee TV. Lots of new modern bands, plus a couple really, really cool classic bands. Fisher Zed, who've been around since the late 70s, British band. They have a new video on there. Latin Quarter, who've been around since the mid 80s. They've got a video there. Lots of, and it goes anywhere from power pop to post punk. And that is premiering tomorrow. Well, here I'm going to rank my favorite Big Star albums right now. There, I'm done.
You don't like Big Star?
Big Star, I think are okay.
I love Big Star. Oh no. Oh, I thought maybe I didn't know you didn't like them.
No, I don't dislike them. That's the thing.
Oh, okay. Well, every time your name, I figured maybe you did like them.
Your name is he's just trying to poke the bear. He's poking the bear.
I've never heard you talk about Big Star, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
Go listen to Little Robbers and Careful. If you dislike those, the others will be painstaking.
Yeah, I mean, listen to everything that all of us have suggested. I say All for One and Careful. Grant says, which ones? Or Eric says,
I love Apocalypso. I love it.
Apocalypso. I say just listen to them all. I mean, just don't make Shock your gateway. Not a terrible album.
Big Star rules. Yeah. What about Quarter Flash? Oh, I'd love to talk about Quarter Flash.
I never really paid attention to them, so I don't like or dislike them.
Wow. Maybe I'll have to. I bet Todd Evans can talk Quarter Flash. I'm already digging out my Motel records. Good for you, Brian.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, we got on a tangent. Is there anything else you want to talk about real quick?
Schnee TV tomorrow. Plus, I've got tons more CD junkies that I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks.
Okay, cool. All right, we can end this, dog. All right, everybody. Tomorrow's Friday. Have a good day. I don't think I have anything tomorrow. I'm going to look in my book. God, I might have a day off. Looking in the book right now. Nope,
remember,
nothing
Schnee
on the
TV
calendar.
Episode 7. Schnee TV Episode 7 premieres tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific, an hour long, and it's just like watching your favorite hour of MTV.
Yep, do it. All right. Hey, Maureen. How are you? Have you made a comment yet? Or are you just getting here? We're ending this show, but I'm glad you're here. Jason, Gary, Brian, Eric, your name. Hey, Ken, thanks everybody for showing up. We'll see you next time. Keep it real. Stephen Schnee, we'll see you tomorrow. I'll pop in for the show. I have nothing going on, so I might as well hang out.
Yeah.
And then Quarter Flash, Eric. I'm going to think about that. All right, everybody. We'll see you. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Grant.